found myself compelled to participate in an ABO male idol survival show. It is said that the organizers have selected 30 alpha contestants. As an omega, I must conceal my true identity and blend in with them. If I manage to keep my secret until the end, I shall be entitled to a grand prize of 3 million. In the early stages of the competition, all eyes were fixed upon me, their gazes ablaze with a predatory hunger, as if they yearned to devour me whole. Alas, they were gravely mistaken. I am merely a beta masquerading as an omega. 01. As I dragged my suitcase into Summer Island, the surrounding crowd turned their attention towards me. I feigned ignorance, swiping my card to gain entry. Behind me, whispers began to circulate. That person, such fair skin and perfectly straight legs, must be an omega. How could an omega be so easily spotted? Struggling slightly, I attempted to lift my suitcase, aiming to ascend the stairs directly. Naturally, I was unable to manage it. A pair of long, slender hands extended towards me, and a deep, cool voice emerged from the youth. "Allow me." I looked up to meet his tranquil gaze. He was tall, exuding a formidable sense of pressure and unmistakable aura belonging to an alpha. I relinquished my grip on the suitcase and silently stepped back. The young man effortlessly lifted my heavy luggage, seemingly casual as he inquired, "Is this your first day here as well?" I nodded, replying, "I just arrived." He carried the cumbersome suitcase with ease, soon delivering me to the doorstep of my dormitory. As he turned to leave, he inclined his head slightly, saying, "My name is Wachan. Should you need anything, feel free to call me." I nodded gently, twisting the door handle to my dorm, acutely aware of the scorching gaze fixed upon the back of my neck. It was a sticky, domineering sensation, laced with a hint of covetousness. Such is the nature of an alpha.it is also something I must grow accustomed to over the course of this month. 02. Gently closing the dormitory door behind me, I surveyed the space designated as a dormitory. A young man sat cross-legged on the edge of his bed, his eyes veiled by a black satin cloth, revealing only his prominent nose and elegantly sculpted jawline. Perhaps the sound of the door had disturbed him, for he furrowed his brow in irritation. "Who?" he inquired. I cautiously leaned my luggage against the wall and replied, "Hello." My soft voice brushed against his ear like a feather, delicately grazing his heart. The youth froze, his long, pale fingers gripping the satin as he abruptly pulled it away. I noticed his striking golden eyes, an emblem of the Federation's elite. Such eyes were a rarity, possessed by only a select few. I mused that it must be quite challenging to masquerade as one of them. The disproportionate representation within the Federation made such features uncommon, each individual bearing distinct traits, whether in appearance or pheromones, always exhibiting some characteristic that set them apart. With this thought, I smiled at the curve of his eyes, my voice becoming increasingly gentle. "Hello, my name is Cho Ran." He gazed at me intently, then averted his eyes, a blush creeping across his fair complexion. "Limoran," he replied. "Our names are somewhat similar," I noted, as I arranged my belongings and cautiously approached the bed, akin to encroaching upon a wild beast's territory. "If you occupy bed 2, may I take bed 3? Bed 2 and bed 3 were adjacent to one another, arranged closely for dramatic effect by the show's producers, leaving a narrow passage that scarcely allowed for movement. A mere shift during the night might result in one rolling into another's embrace. Limoran bit his lip, his cheeks flushing deeper. Yet he did not object. At that moment, the door swung open again. A strikingly beautiful figure entered, adorned with chestnut curls, enchanting peach blossom eyes accentuated by a tear mole, and clad in a stylish trench coat, exuding an aura of grace. However, no one could mistake him for merely a pretty face. Towering at nearly 6 feet 3 inches, he radiated an imposing presence, further intensified by the overwhelming scent of his pheromones. A rich, floral aroma of roses, unapologetically enveloping the space. Upon spotting me, his eyes suddenly lit up. I didn't expect to find a little cutie here. He nonchalantly seated himself beside me, pushing Limoran aside. "Darling, come sleep with me tonight." His almost flirtatious tone lingered in my ears, akin to a gentle waft of floral fragrance. I glanced at Limoran. "Sure." 03. On the first day of the show's recording, the 4-person dormitory was not yet fully occupied. The director explained, "One of the young masters is rather finicky. His belongings Haven Tea arrived, and he refuses to move in." I chuckled softly, opting not to elaborate. Those at the pinnacle of various industries are either affluent or prestigious. Moreover, due to physiological repulsion, they seldom congregate in one place. Gathering such a plethora of high-quality individuals for a variety show is indeed a formidable task. I had heard that the director had exhausted his connections and reputation to assemble such a group. The show's main draw, after all, was the singular presence of a certain individual. With this in mind, I noticed the director's gaze towards me soften. "Joe, how do you feel on the first day?" I smiled lightly. "Everyone is quite friendly." He nodded in satisfaction. "Friendly is good. Friendly is good." However, he then frowned, scrutinizing my attire. "But your outfit is a bit much." I glanced down at my clothing. Merely a plain t-shirt and shorts, nothing extraordinary. The director remarked meaningfully, "Don't forget your ultimate goal." I smiled against the night breeze. "Rest assured, I haven't forgotten." The director, after imparting his advice, nodded in acknowledgement. "I trust you to handle your affairs, but caution is always wise. I've heard your estrus period is approaching. Should I have my assistant bring over some suppressants?" I responded promptly, "Sure, thank you." It was only after his figure had receded that I allowed a scoff to escape. In truth, I didn't have an estrus period. I, as a synthetic, would never experience such a thing. 04. Upon returning to the dormitory, I recalled the director's words. If a simple t-shirt was deemed too eye-catching, I would have to begrudgingly change into something else. My wardrobe was limited, but I did possess a loose-fitting shirt I could switch into. With no one present in the dormitory, I decided to remove my t-shirt. Just then, a sudden, urgent knocking echoed from outside the door. I paused, and before I could utter a word, the person outside, unable to restrain himself, pushed the door open. "What are you doing in broad daylight?" His voice abruptly halted. Remaining composed, I slipped on the shirt, while the cool, handsome youth outside, wearing sunglasses, lost his calm demeanor. He wiped away a trickle of blood from his nose and stepped forward, demanding, "Why are you changing clothes in there?" I looked at him in confusion. If not here, then where? Though the dormitory boasted an independent bathroom, the pheromone processor inside was currently operational, making it evident that entering would be inconvenient. The youth fell silent, momentarily at a loss for words. I fastened the buttons of my shirt and smiled at him, extending my hand. "Hello, I'm Cho Ran." He awkwardly took my hand, his earlobes and neck flushing a deep crimson. "Pei Siyuan." Upon hearing that name, my smile flickered momentarily before I masked it. Rolling up the sleeves of my shirt, the exposed whiteness of my wrists seemed to make Pei Siyuan uneasy. I smiled at him. "Tomorrow is the preliminary stage of the talent show. Are you nervous?" Pei Siyuan rubbed his nose. "What do I have to be nervous about? We're not here to debut," but rather he halted abruptly, realizing his slip of the tongue, and fell silent. I glanced at the obstructed camera, smiling knowingly. "It's all right, we all understand the situation. We're here merely to identify the Federation's jewel, the object of fervent pursuit throughout one's life." Most participants in the program were there with romantic intentions, indifferent to the actual prospects of debuting. Whether first or last, the one who could adeptly sniff out the singular jewel among the 30 contestants would be the ultimate victor. On the first day on Summer Island, I had already captured the attention of many. Those predatory gazes, lurking in the shadows, were poised to strike at the opportune moment. However, within the confines of the dormitory, my fingertips intentionally grazed the hem of the young man's garment before me. The meticulously applied pheromone perfume began to take effect. Pei Siyuan's eyes grew increasingly red, revealing a bestial instinct as veins bulged, drawn towards the alluring scent. I smirked, abruptly shutting the dormitory door, isolating him outside, and inwardly scoffed. Another incapable of restraining his base desires. 05. On the following day, the talent show commenced in earnest. Following the customary television broadcast format, the first episode required a talent showcase to determine class assignments. As the director set the lighting, cameras floated in from all directions, already poised for action. Viewers had eagerly counted down the moments, clamoring, "I want to see handsome guys. I want to see handsome guys. Oh my, so many handsome faces." A dazzling array of stars graced the stage, each distinct, some cool, some sunny, some vibrant, and others elegant. Leaning against the central reef of Summer Island, smiling at the cameras. The flashes of the cameras erupted, capturing their seemingly indifferent expressions, which belied the anticipation simmering beneath the surface, ready to ensnare the coveted jewel. Today marked the first day of auditions. After the initial introductions and class assignments, the selection process would officially begin. The war of formal pursuits is about to commence. I averted my gaze, avoiding the camera for the first time. Meanwhile, the host continued to vociferously announce the program's itinerary. Our summer pursuit show is unlike any other talent competition. Although it retains the initial stage project, it transcends mere talent display. It is, instead, an assessment of pheromone purity and fragrance. Upon utterance of this declaration, The audience erupted in astonishment. All eyes fixated on a row of small reagent bottles, and instinctively, the contestants adjusted their postures. If physical appearance serves as the primary criterion for quality, then pheromones undoubtedly represent the most significant standard. Even a contestant with a robust and imposing exterior would be relegated to the lowest tier of mate selection if their pheromones were weak and of low purity. Thus, the competition surrounding pheromones is of paramount importance. It is a battle fiercely contested. As the contestants ascended in the order determined by lottery, they released their pheromones. The scent emanating from Zhuchan was a deep, woody aroma, remarkably pure, which immediately placed pressure on those nearby. He smirked and glanced back at me. At that moment, Li Moran stepped forward, obstructing his view of me. A chilling yet intense scent reminiscent of ice and snow enveloped the air. His pheromones were akin to a drawn tang sword, ancient and profound. Next came the elegantly dressed beauty, Chijiao, whose smile was present yet did not reach his eyes. The overpowering scent of roses made a commanding entrance, invading the nostrils of all present. Following him was Pei Siyuan, whose pheromones were uniquely reminiscent of sunlight, characterized by an exceptionally high purity level, nearly at the top tier. Each contestant's pheromones varied, yet all displayed a strong purity on the test strips. After all, these top-tier contestants were meticulously selected by the director, each possessing a modicum of talent. Once all 29 contestants had been tested, only I remained. Their gazes converged upon me, intense, covetous, as if anticipating something. I stepped forward and released a hint of my pheromones onto the test strip, which promptly displayed a concentration of 1. The audience gasped in shock. The mystery is solved. Oh my beautiful and fair wife is such a fool to reveal herself under such scrutiny. Heartbroken. Why am I the only one absent from the scene? At that moment, the weight of their stares intensified. The atmosphere shifted to one of open conflict. The pheromone detection device emitted a low hum before ceasing to function altogether. The overwhelming pheromones clashed and repelled each other. I lowered my eyes, locking gazes with the astonished director. He, too, seemed taken aback that I would reveal my identity on the first day. However, this segment had been proposed just the night before by one of the 30 contestants. I turned to scan the group, but none displayed any signs of unusual behavior. As the situation spiraled out of control, the host rushed forward. Our game rules dictate that contestants are classified according to pheromone purity. Therefore, only contestant Qiu Ran remains in this category. Now, please return to your respective classes and temporarily disperse. His voice was firm and the director stepped in, distributing class cards to the contestants. I received the soul card designated for Class A. As I proceeded towards my designated class, I noticed someone in the crowd heading towards Class A, their gaze piercing and intense, as if they were a volcano on the verge of eruption. It felt as though they were silently declaring, "I have found you." The director sought me out for a conversation, his brow furrowed with concern. "Xiaoqiu, you've revealed your identity on the very first day. How can you possibly navigate the upcoming month?" I assured him, "Director, there is no need for concern. I have further strategies in place." I had anticipated this scenario, given the stark contrast between my appearance and that of the others. A discerning eye would easily recognize the resemblance to a certain individual. Thus, I had meticulously prepared my contingencies. I shall prove myself during tomorrow's dating event. The Summer Pursuit Show differs from other talent competitions. While it bears the name of a talent show, it intricately weaves elements of dating reality shows, talent showcases, and social deduction games. The dating segment encapsulates the essence of romance in reality shows. Contestants will be randomly divided into groups and sent to various areas on the island for activities, such as heartfelt conversations and games, allowing them to get to know one another. The director, noticing my tranquil demeanor, relaxed somewhat. He patted my shoulder, saying, "Pay close attention to the heartfelt messages tonight." I nodded in agreement. Heartfelt messages are also a staple of dating shows, allowing anonymous texts to be sent to those of interest as a means of gauging mutual feelings. As night fell, I sat in the dormitory chair, observing multiple messages popping up on the phone provided by the production team. "Are you Qiu Ran? Pleased to meet you. For tomorrow's date, would you like to join me? When did you leave the lab?" Amidst the flirtatious and friendly messages, one stood out as discordant. I scrutinized it for a long while before finally swiping it into the trash. The dormitory lights had long been extinguished, leaving only the glow of the phone illuminating my face in the darkness. I casually replied to one of the messages, "Nice to meet you." Suddenly, a rapid breath broke the silence in the dormitory. However, the darkness concealed the identity of its source. I put away my phone and closed my eyes to sleep. In the middle of the night, I felt a gentle touch grazing my forehead, careful and delicate, as if treating a priceless treasure. I kept my eyes shut, awaiting further action, but he retreated slowly instead. On the third day, I rose early. After tidying my hair, I borrowed some perfume from Chijo, applying it generously. He smirked, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "Who are you dressing up for with such care?" I replied, "It's a date. One must take it seriously." I then feigned casualness, adding, "Last night, I felt as if something were pressing down on me," gently stroking my head.
Limoran,
Who was in the midst of washing up, lost his grip on his cup, which clattered to the floor. As he picked it up, the skin behind his ears flushed a deep crimson. Chijo glanced at us, seemingly catching on, a smile creeping to his lips. I inquired, "Where est Pei-Siyuan?" He left quite early. He must be out for a morning workout," Chijo replied, seemingly indifferent to the others' activities. "The young master has a morning exercise habit?" I glanced outside, just in time to see Pei-Siyuan entering, dressed minimally, a thin sheen of sweat glistening on his forehead. His handsome face, flushed from exertion, exuded youth and the scent of hormones. I smiled, greeting him, "Good morning, Ayen." The overly intimate address caused a momentary pause in the breathing of the other two in the dormitory. Pei-Siyuan, who had been projecting an air of haughty superiority, now blushed slightly. He nodded at me. "Good morning, Cho-Cho." The last two words were barely audible. I nodded back and stepped out, leaving the atmosphere in the dormitory thick with unspoken tension. Upon exiting, the director, who had been waiting, promptly handed me a location card. "The seaside," he gestured to me. "Remember to seize the moment." I understood what he wanted me to demonstrate. One of the distinguishing marks between the Imperial and other districts lies in the time spent underwater. Those with superior physical strength, endurance, and lung capacity can often remain submerged for extended periods, while those naturally delicate may lack fully developed lungs, unable to sustain prolonged dives. I found myself in the middle, achieving an unremarkable balance. However, as long as the diving time exceeds a certain duration, it is akin to a world apart. Upon arriving at the seaside, I found the beach already bustling with numerous competitors. Some were indulging in jet skiing, while others were engaged in surfing. Upon spotting me, they greeted with laughter. "Xiao-Chiu, you've drawn the seaside too. Are you going for a swim? I can join you." "No, let us surf instead. I'm quite adept at it. How about trying a dive?" The individual who uttered this was met with incredulous glares from those around. Really, what an insensitive remark. You know diving is off limits. Soon, someone approached me eagerly, attempting to close the distance. "Xiao-Chiu, let us not engage in such dangerous activities. Let us go swimming." "No." I smiled gently and shook my head. "I want to try diving." The surrounding individuals were momentarily taken aback, exchanging astonished glances. "You diving?" 08. Beneath the profound depths of the sea, schools of fish darted past my fingertips, and unknown creatures emitted a soft glow. I counted the seconds below. The underwater scenery was one I had witnessed countless times before. I vaguely recalled years ago when I expressed to Iran my desire to practice diving. He had widened his eyes, scolding me for being reckless. Yet, I insisted I wanted to train to become like him. He had then fallen silent. From that moment on, I remained beneath the surface while he lingered on the shore, always ensuring my safety, rescuing me countless times when I nearly lost consciousness. Eventually, I was able to dive for over 10 minutes, just like him, but he was no longer by my side. I withdrew my gaze, glancing towards a secluded corner, confirming all was well before swimming upward. At the beach, the timer was frozen in disbelief. You. His eyes roved over my slender legs and luminescent chest, seemingly unable to comprehend. "You're not him." "I'm not." I accepted the towel, drying my damp hair, a subtle smile gracing my lips as I turned to him. "Who told you I was him?" "I am me." His confusion deepened, his nostrils flaring slightly, yet he failed to detect the familiar scent of the person he sought. His expression turned increasingly frustrated, and he distanced himself from me with a look of disdain. "Why pretend if you're not him?" Apart from him, those who had previously hovered nearby retreated as well. They huddled in groups, discussing something, their expressions now tinged with disgust, devoid of their earlier gentleness. My demeanor grew imperceptibly colder. At that moment, someone approached me. It was Li Moshwan. He regarded those fickle individuals with a piercing gaze, glinting with icy resolve. Silently, he draped a coat over my shoulders and offered me a cup of hot coffee. Surprised, I accepted the coffee, looking at him with curiosity. "Why are you still close to me?" he countered, ISNT proximity forbidden? I chuckled lightly. Indeed, friendship exists even between us.
No, Limuxuan raplia suyanli.
There's friendship only between you and me. I was taken aback by his words, but recalling his aloof and solitary demeanor, it made sense. I gulped down the coffee, feeling a flicker of sincerity. Thank you. He watched me finish the drink, a hint of a smile softening his cold features. No need for thanks. As I emerged from the beach, the director excitedly pulled me aside, pointing at the latest ratings chart. Xiao Qiu, our ratings have surged several points. Everyone is speculating about your true identity. He patted my shoulder. Keep it up. This is how our show becomes interesting. After the director walked away in satisfaction, I turned to the side, only to suddenly meet a pair of enchanting eyes. Chi Zhou emerged from the shadows of a pillar, seemingly having listened for quite a while. He fixed his gaze upon me, then suddenly chuckled, his delicate, fair fingers bringing a cigarette to his lips. As the smoke curled around us, he asserted, "You are him." I replied, "What if I'm not?" Chi Zhou narrowed his eyes, their alluring slant revealing a hint of cunning. "I've seen you, number 1, in PS Laboratory, 09. As night fell, the production team set up a massive bonfire by the seaside. I sat beside the fire, allowing its warm glow to illuminate my face. Suichan observed my expression, handing me a skewer of barbecued delights. "You seem a bit unhappy."
Doi.
I took the skewer, brushing my fingers against my face. No need to look. My complexion was surely pale at this moment. My hands and feet felt cold, and a sense of unease lingered in my heart. I hadn't anticipated encountering Chi Zhou here. His light-hearted remark from the day weighed heavily on my mind, making me restless. I have always been meticulous in my endeavors, but now an unforeseen variable had emerged, unsettling me. Yet, the mask I donned remained firmly in place. I smiled at Suichan, "Thank you." As I noticed him about to utter more entangling words, a wave of irritation washed over me. Suichan hadn't been assigned to the beach and was still unaware of the diving situation. For some reason, I yearned to remove my mask and retreat to a secluded place. Rising to my feet, I nodded at him before walking away into the distance. The sea breeze tousled my hair, scattering my thoughts. I strolled along the shore until I reached a deserted area. Leaning against the rocks, I gazed at the shimmering surface of the sea, letting out a gentle sigh. My heart felt lost and weary. The unexpected presence of an uninvited person left me uncertain of my path forward. Just then, a soft voice broke through the quiet. "Are you all right?" I turned, startled, and saw Li Moshwan cautiously emerging from behind the rocks. His golden-hued eyes sparkled in the night, and he repeated, "Are you all right?" I replied, "Not so well." Li Moshwan approached cautiously, placing the back of his hand against my forehead for a swift assessment. "You have a slight fever," he stated confidently. I was taken aback by his perceptiveness. Li Moshwan continued, "Actually, I've been meaning to ask why you are here. We all seek to find him, yet my intuition tells me your purpose lies elsewhere." I inquired, "Have you seen him?" Li Moshwan shook his head. "No." I looked up at the myriad stars above. "I came to Summer Island simply because someone once yearned to visit here." "Who?" "My brother, a dear one. Unfortunately, he has passed away." Li Moshwan was taken aback. As I noticed he was about to press further, I stood up, brushing off the sand from my hands. "All right, that's enough questions." I walked away, stopping only after a considerable distance. When I touched my face, I was astonished to find my hands wet with tears. I saw a figure illuminated by the moonlight, playing the violin. Pei Siyun's tall silhouette appeared tender in the moon's glow. The melancholic strains of the violin tugged at my thoughts. He usually presented himself as a carefree scion, yet his skill on the violin was unexpectedly exquisite. As Pei Siyun played, he suddenly turned and spotted me. Though serious while playing, he became flustered upon seeing me. The sea breeze rustled our hair, and I pressed my hand against my heart, confessing, "I'm feeling a bit unwell." He dropped the violin, hurriedly rushing to support me. I gasped for air, my heart racing violently, as if electric currents coursed through me. I knew it was a remnant of past surgeries, reminding me of what I had endured. Pei Siyun gazed at me with evident concern, nearly initiating cardiopulmonary resuscitation, only to be halted by my intervention. I gestured towards my jacket pocket, saying, "There are pills inside." He swiftly retrieved the vial, dispensing 2 capsules into my mouth. Then, he regarded me with a furrowed brow. "If you feel unwell, withdraw immediately. What are you doing participating in a talent show?" I felt somewhat better, gently clutching my heart as I breathed. "I can't forego the competition. I need the money." Pei Siyun blurted out, "I'll support you. However, Upon meeting my teasing gaze, he found himself in an embarrassing predicament. After taking the medication, the discomfort in my heart finally subsided. Yet, an unusual sensation crept up the back of my neck, accompanied by a slight warmth. Soon, Pei Siyuan's astonished eyes fell upon my nape. He inhaled deeply, as if catching a scent in the air. His eyes uncontrollably transformed into a shimmering gold. "Cho, are you?" An unbearable heat enveloped me. Pei Siyuan was mistaken. I was not. Yet, he was correct in another sense. I had once been a creature, stripped of my glands and pheromones. According to societal classifications, I was now indistinguishable from a mere shadow of what I once was. Therefore, when the director approached me, I felt no fear easily manipulating these individuals. Yet, I had not anticipated that the emergency medication tucked away in my pocket would trigger a false heat. It awakened the essence of what I once was, suppressing the fade I had maintained. At that moment, the area at the nape of my neck, where my glands should have been, felt achingly tender, suffused with warmth. I bit my lip hard, stifling my gasps. Pei Siyuan's gaze lingered on the flushed skin of my neck. Like a fool, he seemed unable to control his eyes or his teeth. Yet he continued to probe, asking, "Cho, are you?" As if he would not take action until he received a definitive answer. I couldn't help but laugh. I never imagined that, in this era, such a fool still existed. I dug my nails into my palm, maintaining a moment of clarity. Then, I tilted my head back and smiled brightly at him. "No, I'm just a mere. Haven't you heard?" I softly replied, "Pei Siyuan, that pill you just gave me is an aphrodisiac. Did you not notice? I was enticing you." Pei Siyuan's face flushed crimson, his gaze on me causing his tongue to nearly trip over itself. "You and I." Seizing the opportunity, I struck decisively. Even the most formidable of individuals exhibit vulnerabilities when their minds are clouded. My body felt heavy and weak, but I managed to drag him behind the rocks to obscure any traces of our encounter before staggering away. I had long since familiarized myself with the island's layout and had left hiding spots in the jungle specifically for such extraordinary circumstances. However, I had not anticipated the overwhelming side effects of those 2 pills. I had only taken a few steps when my vision blurred into obscurity. My breath grew increasingly heated, and the itchiness at the nape of my neck became unbearable. I released my bitten lip, only to stumble and fall, unable to rise again. At that moment, through tear-filled eyes, I suddenly saw a figure approaching. The scent of roses enveloped me, flooding into the emptiness of my nape. I heard him click his tongue, then felt him lift me into his arms. Indeed, the pills they specially formulated are undeniably effective. When I awoke again, I found myself shackled, my hands and feet bound. In the cozy room, a man with chestnut curls sat beside my bed. He was tall and elegant, his features striking, exuding an effortless charm. Jijiu was engrossed in a fairy tale book, The Little Prince of Roses. It told the story of a rose growing in the jungle, who fell in love with the little prince and would not hesitate to prick others with thorns to keep him forever confined. I surveyed the room. In a resource-scarce summer island, this dwelling stood out as incongruous. Its European elegance, adorned with numerous luxurious embellishments, seemed more suited for nurturing canaries. Meanwhile, my gaze settled on Jijiu, a hint of derision flickering in my eyes. "Fei Shui, this is your only tactic." Yes, I recalled now. His true name was not Jijiu, but Iris Fei Shui, one of the aristocrats who had observed me through glass in the laboratory. Iris Fei Shui smiled gently, brushing aside the unruly strands of hair from my forehead. "Darling, you finally remembered me." His gaze held a fervor. "From the first moment I saw you in the Pei family laboratory, I was irresistibly captivated by you. You sat there, resembling a beautiful glass statue. I could not divert my gaze from you. I have seen many specimens, but you are the most exquisite." He pressed a soft kiss at the corner of my mouth. "Darling, stay here. I will give you all that I possess." Rising to his feet, his tailored suit elegantly enveloped his tall frame, yet he resembled a snake hiding beneath a beautiful exterior, menacingly flicking its tongue. If anyone were to snatch his prey away, he would recklessly drag the entire world into hell. I regarded him with disdain. Yet, Iris Fei Shui strode away, blissfully indifferent to my sentiments. This man, renowned for his suave elegance among the upper echelons of society, was an unadulterated madman. I had heard whispers of his twisted, dark nature, inherently sensitive and suspicious. His love was destructive. Nothing he set his sights upon remained unscathed. This lunatic had developed an infatuation with me, unbeknownst to me. After he departed, I sat in the bedding, my gaze icy. That night, confined by Iris Fei Shui, I dreamt of the past 18 years. I relived the experiences of waking each morning in the cold, sterile capsule, consuming liquid nutritional agents while soulless machines scanned my body. At 9 o'clock, researchers would arrive to inject new substances into us, taking great care not to pierce our delicate skin. However, the injected agents would amplify our suffering 100-fold. The process of waiting in despair, whether it be pain or itch, was merely the simplest step. The most unbearable aspect was the reflection in the mirror after the agents had evaporated. We would confront the grotesque versions of ourselves reflected back. The agents would cause them to sprout flirtatious cat ears or tails, or even transform into mermaid-like creatures. Under the influence of the drugs, their personalities inevitably became delicate and effeminate. Many, upon waking, succumbed to despair and chose to end their lives. Those who survived, the adaptable ones, would pass rigorous testing and be sent to prestigious families as breeding vessels. This was the grim truth that the Empire had perpetuated for generations. All those who exhibited potential were identified in their youth during physical examinations, then secretly taken to a collective institution, where they endured the first half of their lives in captivity. All their bodily resources belonged to the laboratory, and any attempts to escape were met with severe punishment. In addition to the daily rigorous training, they were subjected to additional human experimentation. A multitude of agents and trials consumed many lives, while the scant few qualified were allocated by a few prominent families controlling the laboratory, including the Pei and Fei Shui families. The Pei family's laboratory boasted the most comprehensive facilities for indoctrination. I had concealed myself within its confines for 18 years, ultimately becoming the most perfect specimen, designated as subject number 1. The owners of the laboratory delighted in inviting socialites to observe me through glass, their expressions reflecting satisfaction and delight as they regarded me like a caged bird. Iris Fei Shui may have been among those people. Yet, there was one thing I never anticipated. After my defection from the laboratory, I knew he would eventually discover and capture me. However, none could thwart the meticulously devised plan for my vengeance. No one. Iris Fisher during the day had to contend with recording sessions, yet at night, he would come to my quarters to observe me. He tilted my chin, gazing at me as one might tease a kitten. They are all searching for you, he remarked. Particularly Pei Siyuan, who is nearly frantic. That little madman, Li Moran, nearly turned the island upside down. He regarded me with a bemused expression. Cho, your allure is truly formidable. I merely stared back at him. If my allure is indeed so powerful, will it compel you to spare me? His gaze deepened as he leaned in towards my lips, only to be met with my abrupt evasion. Iris Fisher straightened, a smile lingering at the corner of his mouth. He seemed unfazed by my slight resistance. For someone of his stature, such defiance only heightened the intrigue. It was as if he had instructed the production team to prepare pheromone test strips on the very first day, nearly exposing my identity. Cho, he whispered, you cannot escape my grasp. Dream on. As I watched his silhouette fade from the villa, I harshly wiped my lips with the back of my hand. The friction had rendered my lips a vivid crimson, reflecting in the mirror like tempting berries. I fixed my gaze on my reflection for a moment before activating the concealed signal device hidden within my ring. The device was set to trigger automatically. Once activated, my contacts would immediately set out to locate me. I should not have resorted to this so early. Yet, if I missed my opportunity today, my plans for revenge would dissolve into nothingness. An hour later, 3 knocks echoed upon the door. I opened it to reveal a petite, disfigured woman. I called her ABO. She is my dearest comrade, my indomitable last line of defense. When I defected from the Pei family laboratory and sought refuge in the black market, she was the one who aided and supported me. ABO is mute, communicating solely through sign language. However, this has never hindered our ability to connect. She is a diligent and courageous woman, having accomplished many remarkable feats. After becoming familiar with her, I once inquired why she helped me evade the Pei family's pursuit. She remained silent. It was only later that I learned she had once carried a beautiful, delicate baby girl for 10 months. But they took her away, ABO signed. Her child was snatched before she even had the chance to behold her. Since then, she has been without a home, perpetually searching for her child. This revelation left me speechless. Upon asking ABO the age of her child, I was astounded to discover that, due to a contamination incident in the laboratory that year, all experimental infants had been exterminated. After I finished speaking, ABO silently wept. Then, she wiped her tears and fortified her resolve for vengeance. A resolve akin to mine. I once had a twin brother, resembling me closely yet possessing a temperament starkly different from my own. If the doctor described me as the tranquil ice, he was the ever-enthusiastic little sun. Countless cold, lonely nights were illuminated by his encouragement, urging me to persevere. He smiled at me and said, "Brother, we must live well. Only by living can we have a future, only by living can we have opportunities." Yet, the one who spoke such words left this world before me. When I found him, he was drenched in blood, unrecognizable. His glands had been excised, his eyes removed, his organs extracted for experimentation. The reason? Simply that his pheromone purity was insufficient. The laboratory personnel declared, a pheromone concentration of 10 is nothing but a liability. He was then taken away to undergo inhumane experimentation. The last time I saw him, he was devoid of vitality. Unlike the sunny disposition I once knew, he now resembled a shattered doll. Eventually, I encountered ABO. Together, we spent 3 years meticulously crafting this audacious plan for revenge. The entire island became the stage for my retribution. I traversed the lush forests of Summer Island. This small isle has been revered as a paradise since its discovery a decade ago. I am uncertain when the Fisher family constructed their villa here, but ABO and I infiltrated this location 3 years ago to lay our groundwork. We dedicated 3 years to orchestrating this plan. During that time, I underwent gland extraction, cut my long hair, and engaged in rigorous fitness training, all for the sake of revenge. Now, as I walked through the dense jungle of Summer Island, a chill filled my heart. Today marked the 13th day of the talent show. Halfway through the competition, one contestant had gone missing. Rather than searching for them, the production team remained silent, indicating that the Fisher family had everything under control. If that were the case, then I need not show mercy. ABO and I made our way to the heart of the thicket. She, being of shorter stature and clad in a cloak, remained hidden within the woods to provide support. At this juncture, we arrived at a clandestine location. I released the pheromones I had initially extracted, contained within a small vial. The purity was chillingly high. My pheromone concentration was already exceptionally elevated. In the laboratory, I was the primary focus of attention. The doctor proclaimed that my pheromone level was nearly 99, capable of attracting all. Unlike my deceased brother, who possessed only a meager pheromone appeal, I had extracted every last drop of pheromone during the surgery 3 years prior. This high-purity, high-concentration pheromone would drive everyone on Summer Island into a frenzy, leading them to brawl until death ensued. This was the most effective method of revenge I could conceive. The meticulously placed cameras for the talent show would broadcast their disgraceful behavior live. Following the uproar on the internet, my prearranged control plan would be pushed to the forefront of the Star Network. Once the scandal was unveiled, those controlling the laboratory families would surely become the targets of public outrage. After all, no one can tolerate living a lie, and I, the most crucial element of all, would escape this land of sin in a pre-prepared lifeboat, aided by ABO. This was my entire scheme, an intricate web of interconnected plans, meticulously crafted, which should not have gone awry. Yet, I never anticipated that someone would break free from the chains of their desires. That person was Moran. In the thicket, I coldly uncorked the vial of pheromones. The exceedingly pure pheromones spread rapidly, alerting everyone on the island. Initially, they maintained clarity, but soon fell into chaos under the pheromones' influence. They surged towards the source of the pheromone. I left the vial in place, steering ABO towards the opposite direction. To my surprise, we soon encountered Moran not far off. He appeared to have been searching the woods for quite some time, his white clothing torn by branches. Upon seeing me, his eyes lit up, yet he struggled to suppress his rapid breaths and overwhelming desires. Moran knelt, his face flushed, veins bulging on his forehead. In an effort to restrain his instincts while speaking to me, he drove a knife into his palm to remain conscious. I, however, lacked the gentle demeanor I once possessed, regarding him instead with cold indifference. Moran, I deceived you all. I am neither what you think nor what you believe. I am but a broken. I glanced at the time, sensing the tremors of those rushing towards us. I smiled at him. You ask where I have been? Allow me to tell you, I was imprisoned by Chijio. A tumultuous brawl is likely to ensue shortly. You should find a place to conceal yourself. I deeply regret involving you in this matter, but this is my scheme of vengeance. I regarded him with an air of indifference. Everyone on this island is doomed.
Moran's berhati siya.
His golden-hued eyes flickering with intensity. With a sudden exertion, blood streamed from his palm. He declared, I will assist you. Yet I found it hard to trust him. Our time on the island had been brief and uncomplicated, akin to 2 sparks that flared and then extinguished upon contact. I could not fathom that he would forsake his very nature and the imperial glory he had always revered. How could I wager his trifling sincerity against the success of an entire plan? Nevertheless, Li Moran spoke with unwavering conviction. His golden gaze harbored a fierce light, yet his canines bit into his lip, drawing forth crimson droplets. He looked at me, trembling all over, yet still cautious not to frighten me. I will help you escape. I took a step back and smiled at him. Li Moran, had I met you 3 years ago, I would have accompanied you. Alas, it is now 3 years too late. The agony of those years had weighed heavily upon me, and the despairing longing for my brother had overwhelmed me. I loathed myself repeatedly for being a mere pawn. Born with power and dignity, countless glories awaited them, while I possessed only endless submission and affection. We were stripped of our claws and fangs, our pride shattered, learning to serve and please, to become the perfect wives. Yet no one taught us how to be human, a living being with dignity. A hint of derision crossed my gaze. The show must be quite entertaining, with 29 pursuing a single prey, akin to a pack of wolves hunting their quarry, relishing in the helplessness and despair of their victim. Such is your very nature. Regrettably, I am but an utterly ordinary being. All your expectations have come to naught. With that, I turned on my heel and departed, leaving him sprawled on the ground. To succumb to bestial instincts is to perish by them. Wait, came Li Moran's faint voice. With his last ounce of strength, he hurled something towards me. It was a compact lightsaber reminiscent of a tang sword. He said, "In that case, take this." I paused momentarily, yet ultimately bent to retrieve the flashlight-sized weapon. Without further ado, I continued on my way. As Adeo and I approached the shoreline, we heard a thunderous roar emanating from the depths of the forest. Birds that had taken refuge in the trees fled in a flurry. Those lofty beings, draped in noble exteriors, were now battling like wild beasts, wholly disregarding their civilized facades. The most primal, intense, and lamentable method of vying for mates was at play, mutual combat, where the victor claims the throne. Alas, in the end, their desires would amount to nothing. However, when Adeo and I reached the location where the lifeboat was meant to be, and found it utterly devoid of anything, a heaviness settled in my heart. We exchanged glances. Adeo gestured, "I checked yesterday. It was still there." I curled my lips into a smile, the glint in my eyes frosty. It was Iris Fisher. Did he think severing my means of exit would thwart me? I turned in another direction. The Pei family has a small laboratory here. There should be a submarine there. Adeo nodded and followed me. I deliberately avoided any traces of movement, and along the way, we encountered no one. The branches swiped against my face, evoking distant memories. Once, someone had brought me out from the main laboratory, where I had briefly resided in the Summer Island laboratory for a quarter. He told me, "We wish to transform this place into a paradise for all." What he envisioned was the deployment of dozens of beings across Summer Island, accompanied by multiple enhancements, to pursue amusement throughout the island. However, it seemed they encountered resistance and could not bring it to fruition. Yet a year later, the Summer Chase project emerged. From that moment, I understood. This island was destined to be a hell for the hunted, a paradise of indulgence for the hunters. Thus, I would cleanse this island with blood, allowing the filthy blood to purify its beauty. I aimed to leave a lasting terror, causing all within the empire to tremble in fear. In the concealed laboratory, I identified the genetic key. In my memory, at the heart of the lab lay a submarine. Upon entering, I indeed found it intact. However, I did not see the energy core within the submarine. The energy core is the essential power source for all machinery. Without it, all machinery is merely a heap of scrap metal. I furrowed my brow and entered the heavily locked laboratory. Within the towering petri dish glowed the energy core. Yet, to reach the dish, I first had to navigate through a series of mechanisms, enduring twisted pain and swimming through a segment of raw liquid. I approached the mechanisms, allowing the rays to sweep over me. I felt the tearing pain in my bones and muscles. Yet, I remained unperturbed. My body, having endured countless experiments, had withstood far worse torment. The rays would only affect my later years, and I feared them not in my present state. However, from the shadows, a figure lunged forward. He shielded me, shedding his radiation suit to wrap it around me. Gritting his teeth, "Cho Ran," he whispered. "Cho Ran, can't you hide?" I lifted my gaze, my eyes skimming over his anxious ones and the quivering of his lips. The young master, coddled like a delicate flower by his family since childhood, had never encountered such a scene. His face paled in fear of the rays, his body stiffening, yet he steadfastly protected me. With a sudden push, he thrust me out of the radiation's reach, gritting his teeth. "Stay still. I'll go get it for you." I stood outside the perimeter, my arms crossed in cold indifference, watching him struggle to crawl and retrieve the key for me. Invisible blades sliced through his skin, blood spiraling in the container. I gazed at him, suddenly reminded of many years prior. At that time, another had looked at me in the same manner, observing my every move. He was not Pei Siyuan, but he was someone very close to him. He was the eldest son of the Pei family. This madman, born with an emotional detachment, cared for nothing but indulging in various experiments. Countless beings had been tortured to the brink of death under his hands, yet he never so much as furrowed his brow. After much effort, I had finally cracked open a sliver of his heart. He said, "I have a younger brother the same age as you." When he spoke of Pei Siyuan, his face radiated with tender affection. I had knelt at his feet, listening to him recount another's happy life. Born into privilege, cherished by his parents, possessing unparalleled beauty and strength. As a child, he adored playing the violin. As he grew, he took to racing and extreme sports. No matter what mistakes he made, his father and brother always had his back. I will admit, hearing those words filled my heart with bitterness. I envied Pei Siyuan. My brother and I were taken from the slums to the laboratory at birth. We had never lain in our father's embrace, nor heard our mother's gentle lullabies. Our lives had been planned from the very start, merely to become someone's plaything, merely to become someone's vassal. In the cold, sterile laboratory, I often found myself envious of the bright youth's life, until I encountered him again on Summer Island. He was as foolish as I had imagined, easily tempted. Yet, his sheltered upbringing had also granted him a sincerity that many lacked. Even when deceived by me to this extent, he bore no anger, just as he did now. Pei Siyuan burst forth from the water's surface, his pale face marred with minor wounds, yet his eyes shone like stars. He raised the key, smiling at me. "Cho ran. I got it." I accepted the curing from him. Yet at the moment he rose, I delivered a fierce kick to his heart. "Pei Jian, you scoundrel." Pei Siyuan stood dazed, having been sent sprawling into the water, momentarily lost in thought. I wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes and departed with the key in hand. It was not until much later that a frail voice echoed behind me. "I am not Pei Jian, my brother is. I am Pei Siyuan." Ignoring him, I continued on my way. Once the submarine acquired its energy, it could be compressed. After folding it, I held the energy core, now the size of a droplet, and concealed it close to my person. Adu and I made our way to the shore. The once tranquil seaside was now whipped into a frenzy by the wind, rendering it difficult to keep one's eyes open. There stood a figure drenched in blood. He was tall and imposing, squinting against the wind, exuding an undeniable aura of oppression. Iris Fisher, puffing on a cigar, allowed the swirling smoke to drift through his striking features. "Darling, has anyone mentioned that this event also involves the Celestial Eye?" The Celestial Eye, the Empire's supreme surveillance apparatus, rendered everything within its grasp utterly visible. I had not anticipated that the implements of war would be brought forth by Iris Fisher merely to ensnare me. It was rather ludicrous. I smiled at him. "Fisher, with so many at stake, did you truly prevail?" Iris Fisher replied with a soft hum. "With so many coveting the treasure, one must eliminate all threats." A flicker of malice crossed his features. Yet, 2 pesky insects remain unaccounted for. I approached him with a smile, swiftly drawing the tang knife that Li Moran had given me, launching an assault upon him. My strikes were both swift and precise, targeting his injuries and inflicting several more grievous wounds. "Fisher, the Celestial Eye will not inform you that the vanquished are nothing. It will not tell you that even if one was once formidable, there remains a chance to defeat you." With that, I sheathed my blade and released the submarine, taking Adu by the hand as we ascended. In the end, I cast one last glance at the beautiful isle. Chasing summer, I pursued an aimless dream. Alas, their beautiful illusions ultimately crumbled to dust. Epilogue. Chasing summer became a crimson shadow in the annals of the Empire's history. From that moment forth, whenever the island was mentioned, people would gesture dismissively. In the years that followed, laboratories across the globe were clandestinely breached, releasing a multitude of captives. They bore expressions of cold detachment, as if they had endured torment for far too long. The infamous control case of the Empire faced trial in the Grand Court, where an irate crowd had gathered outside. They shouted vehemently, "Besides the great families, what else have you controlled? Are the lives of ordinary people not lives at all?" This matter gradually brewed. Over the ensuing centuries, regime changes occurred, giving rise to the Egalitarian Federation, which replaced the decaying empire. As for the origins of this tale, the name that resonated through the mouths of Marshal Li Moran and Prime Minister Pei Siyuan was Cho Ran. Yet, this name ultimately proved to be a facade. The legendary figure, parentless and nameless, was known only as a whisper. Save for the winds of the world, no one knew whence he came. Nevertheless, the silhouette he left in the hearts of the people would resonate through generations. As I heard this tale, I found myself on another island, adorned with a vibrant array of life. Adu was diligently aiding them in their arduous reconstruction, helping them reintegrate into society. I watched as the sun merged with the horizon and smiled. The future ultimately belongs to us. The past sank into the depths of the sea, and the days ahead would flow like the wind. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing and liking to support. Until we meet again in the next story.